All right, so here's some news. It's pretty bad news, as you probably all know. So Trump has put a pause on some of the tariffs, which has caused the stock market to recover a bit. So that's possibly nice, but he's doing a whole lot of other things which are extremely totalitarian and outrageous. So here's one. The attorneys in the Justice Department are forbidden from participating in American Bar Association events because they're litigating against the ABA, claiming that they're engaged in activist causes, which I think means he's mad that he keeps losing all his court cases, just like he did in the previous one, since everything he's doing is blatantly illegal. The tariffs, the deportations, and many other things he's doing are completely illegal, and every time he goes to court, he loses. So he feels like the ABA is his enemy and is blocking the agency from sending lawyers to ABA events, which is naturally part of their professional development, part of their professional career. And this is the abuse of power, which is becoming rampant in this administration, where he uses the government power to take revenge on his enemies, which is what he said when campaigning. He said he was going to have a campaign of retribution to get even with all the people that offended him. And that's what he's doing. Nixon tried this too. Nixon tried to send the income tax agency to audit people who offended him. And so they're now revoking visas that people have, more than 300 student visas, and the problem is they revoke these often for no reason and often without telling the student. So this is why I've heard from another teacher that many of the students are afraid to come to class, and that is not illogical, because you can just be walking down the street and they will just send up thugs to kidnap you and send you off to some prison in El Salvador without you ever having any chance to tell your family or get lawyers or anything. So this is terrible. This is totally not what should be happening in America, but it absolutely is happening. And here's another one. There was an app. In order to handle the people getting through the border, they put an app, a phone app you could use to register an appointment and enter the country and stay here while waiting for a legal appointment. And so under the Biden administration, these people were legally here, but again, they have sent them all a message telling them they have to leave immediately, but it is not clear whether they've actually invalidated their visa or whether they have any legal obligation to leave. And this is another characteristic of the Trump administration. Everybody gets vague non-answers from him. Like, remember, a few days ago, they asked him, you said that the tariffs are going to stay on forever no matter what, and you said that people can negotiate with you to get the tariffs taken down, so which is it? And he said, well, it can be both. And it can't be both, but that's what he does. He was always talking out of both sides of his mouth, so people are afraid that they have to leave, and it's not clear whether they really have to leave. Nothing is clear when you don't actually have any rule by law, and when your leader is just crazy and changes his mind every few days or every few minutes, then there are no rules and you don't know what's going on. And that's where we are. So they've cut the HUD grants, which provide housing assistance to people in San Francisco, so we can expect 15,000 more people to be made homeless by this because they depended on this federal money. And we can expect a lot more effects like this all through the nation as the federal government abandons all of its obligations to support any of the states. Already, California is in trouble because I don't think we ever got the FEMA money for the fires in Los Angeles, and I don't think we're going to. Trump's opinion is he will just cancel FEMA and not give any federal money to the states to help them with anything. And, just do it arbitrarily, instantaneously, without providing any alternative way for states to pay for things. And they're attacking university research very extremely. And this shows another important fact about totalitarian regimes like this. Fascist regimes, another word for it. Some of these universities have capitulated. They have tried to give Trump what he wanted. Let me just run that again. All right. And the ones that totally gave in and did what he wanted are still getting screwed, like Columbia. He demanded from Columbia that they end all diversity programs, that they take the Middle East department and greatly limit it and put it under control, Middle East studies, so that it only says things that he wants them to say, and that they crack down on student protest and that they cooperate with ICE agents coming on campus to kidnap their students. And Columbia said, okay, we'll do all that, and now he's just canceling all their funding anyway. So this is an important lesson to learn. There's no point doing what Trump asks for because he's a bad faith actor. He will just screw you anyway. In fact, the evidence is, like most bullies, he will treat you worse if you give in than if you fight back. So now that he increased it to other universities, the National Institute of Health has frozen all its research funding to Columbia. They've also held all funding to Northwest University and Cornell University, and there will probably be a lot more coming. And Princeton. So all the universities that do research are getting cut because Trump just doesn't like science and research, and he feels like that they're just his enemy, and all of his enemies are getting punished. So there's just lots and lots of that going on, and it looks like it's going to get a lot worse. We're in for 4 years of this stuff, I think. Anyway, so Windows 11 seems to have finally rolled out the product that they've tried to roll out for the last year, this thing called Recall. They wanted to push out, but people had huge worries about the security. So now they've made something which seems to implement whatever benefit was going to come from this. You can choose to share apps with Copilot AI. And then you can include that web page or the app, and it will tell you how to use it. And I was thinking I could use this. I was helping a student last night, and a couple times they have like a spreadsheet, and I'm having to go to like Google AI to ask, how do I find the feature I need in this spreadsheet? And you could share the app with Copilot, and then it would be able to look in the app and look through the help pages in the app, I guess, and help you find your way around in the app. So that seems like it might be useful. And you can also share your documents with Copilot locally, and then search your documents and ask your questions about things from your documents and summarize them and stuff. And this is pretty much what Microsoft Recall was supposed to do, but it's a much more restricted form where you actually choose to share files and you know you're doing it, whereas the original plan was to just have Windows automatically scan everything on your machine and make an index of it all so it can use AI without you controlling that. Now it looks like they've come up with a more limited version that might possibly be useful. We'll see. However, of course, like everybody, Microsoft is noticing that AI is not actually making any money, and the plans to make huge, expensive data centers for AI are becoming less attractive, and they're slowing or pausing their AI data center projects. And a lot of people are getting very reluctant to spend the billions on AI that they were planning to, especially since now we're going to go into a huge recession or depression with Trump's tariffs choking off the economy. It probably seems like a very unwise time to invest a ton of money in a giant AI data center when there is no AI product that makes any money that you can sell and no real prospect of one appearing anytime soon. And there was a post here which was deleted, but the contents are copied down below, and people think this is probably Doge. 3 days ago, around the time Doge announced that they're going to rewrite all the code for Social Security from COBOL into a modern language like Java, which is a really dangerous idea, then there was a post asking for COBOL mainframe COBOL coders needed, which would be needed for that. This was the original ad down here. 2 of our coders have quit. This weekend was a mess. The system is solid. I can't believe the crap that is this weekend. This is probably a frustrated person working at Social Security Administration and trying to cooperate with us. See, I'm not clear how Trump picks which universities to stop funding on research. Well, it's not very clear at all, but one thing he said is he punishes the ones that allowed protests of the genocide in Gaza. He doesn't want any of that happening. This, by the way, is something, in the 60s, UC Berkeley had all these student protests against the Vietnam War, and corporations and the government kept going to the administration of UC Berkeley and saying, can't you stop these protests? And they were not able to stop the protests. I know they lost funding from IBM and such for that. And it's the same kind of thing. When the students are protesting something the government doesn't want them protesting, then the government tries to put pressure on the administration to stop the student protests, but they really can't. That idea to rewrite from COBOL, yes, that's right, exactly, Eric. In principle, if you were to make like a 5-year plan to migrate from COBOL to some other system, you could discuss whether that's a good idea and implement it. It's probably not a good idea, actually, because COBOL is the most efficient way to process large amounts of financial transactions. But if you wanted to, you could do it. But it would take years, and you'd have to do it carefully to avoid destroying the operation of the thing. And it's already down. Social Security website's been down a whole lot. People get hung up on the phone lines. And of course, I think this is why the general explanation, which I agree with, is that they are not trying to improve government efficiency or save money. What they're trying to do is destroy government functions so people can't get service, so they just give up. And then they'll just have, because then this, by the way, is not new. When FDR brought in the New Deal, that was adding socialism to America, and at that time, the conservatives said, this is terrible, we should not have any socialism in America, and they still feel that way. So they feel like welfare and Social Security and Medicaid is all just a terrible idea, that we shouldn't have the government doing any of that, and they think things were great back before we had any of that. It is not a completely stupid political position to have, but that's what they have, and they're trying to implement it in sort of a sneaky way. Anyway, let me stop the recording of this.